this May the 4th. I hope that you're doing well this evening and you're looking forward to hope. And that's what this message from Micah that I have today for you is going to bring, an encouragement that there's hope and that God brings messages of hope, knowing the middle of the destruction and the hope before the destruction even happens. So in the book of Micah, which is another one of those tiny little books in the Old Testament, which we call the minor prophets, is located kind of toward the end of the Old Testament. And Micah actually occurs before the exile of Jerusalem. So in the book of Micah, Micah comes down hard with some messages about what's about to happen to both Judah, which is the southern kingdom where Micah is, and Israel, the northern kingdom. So he's telling them, you're going to face some terrible, terrible destruction. Some terrible things are going to come from your enemies because you have turned away from the Lord. You have not sought his protection from these awful things that could happen to you when you don't stay dwelling in the Lord. And that's what he's telling them. He's warning them against what's to come. And he's also promising that the suffering won't last forever. So it's good news that we know that God knows that this is going to happen. He knew ahead of time that the exile was going to happen, that their enemies were going to come and destroy all of Jerusalem and Israel and take only a few people out of it to live and survive. He knew that ahead of time, and he knew to tell the people ahead of time, here's what you need to do to turn back to me and be saved. And he knew this was coming, and because he knew it was coming, he told them ahead of time. He told them for two reasons: to give them one last chance to get out of the way of the destruction. And secondly, he gave them a chance to turn their hearts back to him, because that's what he wants ultimately, is for us to be in relationship with him. He also wants people to know when they're in the midst of hard times that they're not a surprise to God. God knows that this is going to happen before it happens. He knew that the circumstances we're facing today were going to happen. And yet he tells us these things day by day to guide us and direct us how to live our best and to survive these hardships in his presence and under his protection. And even when bad things do happen to us, it does not mean that God is no longer with us and that he doesn't love us. And it shows in the book of Micah that he's promising that after all of this destruction, there's hope. That God is still in love with you as his people when things are at their worst. He does not forsake you, even though you feel forsaken when bad things happen. And I understand that we all feel those things. Yet God promises us from the ancient times until today that in the worst of times, even when we've done terrible things and we are against God for a period of time, he comes to meet us in those places and says, I still love you, and I'm not going to leave you here. I'm bringing you through this to a place of not just hope, but abundance and great promise. So let's look at the mountain of the Lord that he's promising in chapter 4. He says to the people of Judah, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, not just to stay with us, but go out from those of us who are turning our hearts back to him, and share that good news, that encouragement with everybody. This is what he's promising to the people of Micah about Jesus coming and about us today, who are the people of God, from whom the message of the Lord goes out. He will judge between many peoples, and they will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. And he talks of a time of peace. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Every man will sit under his own vine and under his own fig tree. No one will make them afraid, for the Lord Almighty has spoken. Now that is a symbol that people would have understood. You only sit under your own vine and under your own tree during a time when you have great prosperity and peace. So that symbolizes peace and prosperity. We can look forward to God's provision even in the midst of the darkest times, that he's going to come for us and bring us to a place where we can sit in peace under things that provide prosperity over and for us. We will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever. That peace ends with. And he then says in his plan, I will gather the lame, I will assemble the exiles, those brought to grief, I will make the lame a remnant, those driven away a strong nation. The Lord will rule over them in Mount Zion from that day and forever. As for you, O watchtower of the flock, O stronghold, the former dominion will be restored to you. Kingship will come to the daughter of Jerusalem. So the kingship is Jesus. So he's promising to Micah hundreds of years before Jesus that a king is coming. And that is great news. The king is coming. The king is here. And he is with us in this time that we're facing difficult things happening. And he promises us that we can come back to him and experience his protection, his provision, and his abundant blessings. And my favorite thing that we all know from Micah is Micah 6:8. It tells us what to do if we feel like we've turned away from God. It says, what does the Lord require of you? He has showed you, O man, what is good in verse 8. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with God. So simple. He wants us in relationship with him, to be humble before him and be in relationship with him, just to rest our heads against our Father God's chest and say, let me be yours, and I will dwell with you and walk with you in your ways. Teach me your ways. He talks to Israel separately about what they've done wrong, because sometimes people who've been religious are still doing wrong. Sometimes people in leadership. He talks to the government, the prophet Micah, about all the things that they have done wrong. They've accepted bribes, and the Lord is coming to make all of those things right. So when we see injustice, when we don't agree with what our government is doing or what people in power are doing or how they're behaving, know that it's up to the Lord to bring judgment on those things, and he's faithful to do that. We know that because we know who God is, and he's sovereign over all those things. We don't need to fret. We don't need to spew venom all across everywhere that we could possibly speak it. We can trust that God is going to judge that. He knows what their hearts truly are, and he will bring the judgment where it's needed, and correction and discipline as much as he can, because that's God's heart, that he'll turn those people who are in leadership back to him so that they will begin to serve him rightly and justly. And then he promises to Israel, again, that prayer of praise. Micah says, shepherd your flock with your staff. The good shepherd is coming. The flock of your inheritance, which lives by itself in a forest. Let them feed as in days long ago. As in the days when you came out of Egypt, God responds to Micah. I will show them my wonders. You will be true, he says, to Jacob and show mercy to Abraham as you pledged an oath to our fathers in days long ago. So Micah ends this book by saying, I trust you, God. This I know what you're telling me is hard stuff to say, but I trust that you are going to be good and that you have shown mercy to us before and you will do it again because you do not change. And that's what's great about these Old Testament minor prophet books. It's so relevant to where we are now. And we can be encouraged that the God who loves and delivers in one time period does not change. He still is with us today. He brings us promises. He brings us hope. And he, above all, assures us that he is right here with us now. We can bring his light wherever we go and share that truth the way Micah did with the people of Judah and Israel when the dark times were coming. When we see dark times now and we're hoping that they will fade, we can bring truth and say, no matter what happens around us in our circumstances, No matter what our leaders are doing, we can trust that God has a promise and is faithful to that promise, and he will be with us now, and he will bring us blessings in the future. So that is my encouragement to you today from that Old Testament minor prophet book of Micah that has such big, great encouragement for us today. I pray that that blesses you, and I hope that you have a wonderful and prosperous rest of your evening, and that you are encouraged to seek God now and to follow him and to trust him with your future. Bye-bye.